Well, thank you, and good morning, everyone. Well, good morning to the rest of you. Just wave to me a smile. Can you hear me? Okay, I couldn't hear myself very well. Just wave to me and smile, everyone. And just give me a few moments just to connect with all of you. Wow, it is, first of all, very good to be home. And yeah, it is. I was just back in the prayer room before the service and just felt the privilege just walking into the presence. Somebody pays, so somebody else gets to play. And somebody's tears is producing rain for somebody else. And so I just felt that even today. I know we are celebrating D-Day today. And there was also, the most famous D-Day was, of course, in 1944 on Normandy. But for me, it was very significant this morning. My wife reminded me about that. And then I was just realizing one of the reasons we have freedom is because somebody died on beaches in Normandy. So we always honor the roots before we taste of the fruit. So we are tasting of freedom because of what somebody else paid. And including when I'm here in this sanctuary, I know Steve and Lindy, first of all. I know the sacrifices they paid individual that's connected to what we have. And then later on, so they are paid so we get to play. Then we get to pay so somebody else gets to play. And so when we're seeing all the people in kids' church, if not, we're spending inheritance instead of investing it. And I just feel even for the next generation, because if you have 3 generations, you can shift cities and nations. You have Father, Son, Spirit, you have nations. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, you have nation. It takes 3 generations to transform cities and nations. So I'm just very privileged to be part of this family. And even when I'm looking around the room with friends, I don't know how many hugs I get when I get in here. And I'm honest, I'm just going to share a little bit of life. I'm a little tired. I've been on a couple of trips around the world. I first had one trip that I was supposed to be in Qatar, and because of the war, I had to go to Turkey. I went from Turkey to Malaysia later on to Australia, then Australia to Japan, and then Japan, I came to Chicago, came home for one day, then flew to Edmonton, Canada, came home for one day, then flew to Cuba. And I was home, and then I went to a few more places, and then I was on another trip right now. So I've had 2 trips around the world, and just recently I had 22 days in Europe. So I had actually 4 cities of Italy, and that was not vacation, that was ministry time. I love being on vacation in Italy, and I told them next time I'm coming on vacation. But I got to eat a lot of good Italian food. But even to see the hunger in Italy, we just think it is just a Catholic country, but even there the river is flowing in Italy. And we saw so many healings, so many miracles, and so many people get saved everywhere in Italy. So if you have Italian roots, you should be excited about what God is doing in Italy. And then after that, we had 4 leadership gatherings. I did 12 meetings in Italy. And from Italy, I went to England. And I know Steve Hale would be excited that I went to England. And in England, again, we saw a great outpouring. And some of you know there's something called the silence revival going on. And did you know that in England right now, they doubled, just in the last 6 years, young people going to church has doubled. That's in England. And the reason I'm saying that, because a lot of people in this season, they've been distracted by what God is not doing because they don't see what God is doing. I have to say that one more time. There's a lot of people in this season that are being distracted by what God is not doing because they don't see what God is doing. And then they will ask God to bless what they are doing because they don't know how to do what God is blessing. Could I say that one more time? Then we get so focusing on asking God to bless what we are doing instead of getting in and do what God is blessing. And God is actually moving in this season. There's never been a better time to be alive. And then I just came from Brazil this week. So I came home, and I was only home for one day. And then had a trip to Sao Paulo, and from there to Brasilia, and had an amazing time. I got to minister for an hour privately with a former First Lady of Italy. And just also ministered to, had about 800 leaders for 3 days. And one of the sessions that was interesting, and I'm going to actually bring that to my own platform. One of the leaders who's he's a theologian that also specializing about the future and how to navigate the church into the AI world. And to be able to provide both the ethics and the more that is needed for us to be head and not tail in the future AI world. And not be reactive, but being proactive. So I'm just putting that into place. It was exciting to be there, and a couple of creative miracles. One of them I like because he is a pastor of one of the biggest churches in Brazil, and he actually couldn't come to the first leadership session. I mean, they have tens of thousands of people, and he came and he showed us the X-ray that night before. He was just drinking something, and he found out there was crushed glass, and it went in, and it had a big piece of glass. He showed us the picture. And he said, they don't know exactly what to do because it stuck, this piece of glass. So we just prayed. And the next day he came back and said, you're back again. And he said, yes, I am. All the glass just disappeared. So that is called just a creative miracle. And so we were very, very excited about that. So I'm just in a season, personally speaking, where I'm just sensing an incredible hunger. I don't know if there's anybody else, but there's something in my season. I'm just hungry for more. Yesterday I drove to Birmingham. I have my friend Daniel here, and good to see you, Daniel. They came from Birmingham, and his friend Justin. Could you just give them a good hand? But so what I'm sensing is hunger. But I went to Birmingham yesterday, and my son's father-in-law, Leif Hetland's father-in-law, have stage 4 cancer. And I was the third kind of a cancer they just found, and they've given very short time to live. And I spent a day there. We drove there and just ministered and prayed. But I was just thinking, and if Jesus was there, I knew there would have been something different. And I don't know if it is just a little bit of my fatigue level. I've seen some creative miracles with cancer. Even in America, I've seen all cancer disappear. But when I stood, I was just thinking, Jesus, if you were here, I know there would have been something different. And I know my faith level was little, and I still know his grace level is big. So I understand that, but it was this, it's not from a condemnation, but just an invitation for more. So I just sensing this hunger, and I know that I've been asking God, even I was up front here during worship, and I've been asking God for the gift of hunger. It is a gift because you cannot work this. So I know I cannot do it myself. I'm not very good at fasting or any of these things. But if it comes from him, if pain have purpose, if he just show me the Sunday, I'm willing to go to the Friday and the Saturday. I mean, pain has purpose if he just show me the Sunday. But if I don't see the Sunday, the pain of a Friday and even the long Saturday, it doesn't have purpose. So I've been on this journey, and I mentioned this last time when I talked about the heart of roaring lamb. I was sharing that I've been on this journey of learning to go low and slow, and learning how to practicing his presence. And then I started to reread the gospel. And on the journey, I wanted to read it from my heart. Actually, I didn't want us to read the gospel. I wanted the gospel to read me. I didn't want us to study the gospel, but I wanted the gospel to study me. And I did something a little bit different because I went low and slow. I decided also to do something called a contemplation and also visio divina. Well, that is in a simple way is that instead of just reading about it, you're becoming part of the story. So you're going into the story and you have an encounter. So today I'm actually taking you on a journey. I know I preached this once before, but I felt that there's something fresh that I got last night as I was talking about it. But it's been this hunger and the thirst. I know as part of it is also I'm on an assignment. My next major thing, I'm going to Montana this week. I'm trying to remember where I'm going. And the week afterwards, I go to Nigeria, and I'm sure that I get to meet because we're going to be in Abuja and Lagos, going to Africa. But in about 6 weeks, I'm heading to a place where the gospel has never been before. So for 2,000 years, there's never been Jesus. While we were waiting for the second coming of Jesus, they've never heard of the first coming of Jesus. And there's over 120 unreached people group in this area where there's no gospel. And so there's this thing because I have a holy ambition. And Romans 15:20, it said what the Apostle Paul, he just talked about, I have this ambition to preach Christ Jesus where it's never been preached before, lest I build on somebody else's foundation. And that was part of the apostolic calling of the Apostle Paul. And there's this holy ambition that has been in me for 31 years. I have a mission virus in me. And it is contagious. And there's no immune system that can keep away from it. So I have fixed my eyes on Jesus. There's this one thing I desire. There's one thing I long for. And there's part of that I've been fixated. I want everyone to know how good Papa God is. And I want everyone to know how loved they are. And the only way that is going to happen is for them to have an encounter with a God just like Jesus. So the Father, he loves us just the way we are, but he refuses for us to stay that way because he wants us to be just like Jesus. So I've been on this journey, but who Jesus is to us is also who Jesus will be through us. What you're beholding is what you're becoming. So if your favorite scripture verse is Jesus with a whip in the temple, I can pretty much tell you what kind of a marriage you have. What I'm saying it is that there's people here that are finding a certain scripture verse and finding one aspect of Jesus where they're making Jesus into their image instead of into his image. But the more I study Jesus, so this is part of this story, as I started on a journey and I went through the gospel, there was a couple of things that I was looking for, because every single thing that Jesus did is only what he see his Father do. And I wanted to know the same Father that Jesus knew. And I wanted to be loved by the same Father that Jesus was loved by, because Jesus was not looking for love in the wrong places. He didn't have to prove anything. He already had the approval of the Father. And so when the enemy was testing him, and when the enemy is testing me, if you are a son or if you are the daughter, do something. Turn this rock into bread. But Jesus, he knew who he was and whose he was. And so the three tests is, I am what I do. Say, I am what I do. And so a lot of the value system, the enemy is going to try to test your identity. That if you are a son, if you're a daughter, you need to do something. You need to do something. And I know there's a restlessness in me. And I know I start to operate more like an orphan than a son when I have to try to find the approval of man. Because I don't have the approval of my Father. Then I start to operate from pressure if I don't have experienced the Father's pleasure. Then I live from measure because I don't know how to live from fullness. Then I'm trying to achieve what you only can receive. While everything comes from him and it goes through him and it goes back to him. So in this journey, as I'm saying, that I've been there with the Father, and I started to look and see the Father. When Jesus touched the lepers, it's because the Father is touching the lepers. Everything he did is only what he see the Father do. Everything he said is what he said, heard the Father say. And I want us to go on a little journey with Jesus today. And we're going to meet Jesus, because I felt even with a unifying message, one of the things, even in preparation where I am going in July, for 10 years I prepared for this. Twice I have met different presidents and prime ministers of this place. And now the last president just died while I was in Australia. So you spent 10 years in preparation. And then suddenly now it seems like all the relations you have is gone. And everything starts to be very risky. So you become a very needy person. And I don't like this process, because there's one thing in me. At first you get so confident. The Father is inviting you to join him in what he's doing. And first you get excited what you're going to do. But then he strips you away from everything, where you realize there's absolutely nothing you can do. Like, I know there's going to have to be creative miracles for them to see Jesus, that Jesus is alive. That is 100% Muslim in this area. And so I know that, but I cannot do any miracles. I cannot even save a person. So he first strips away everything. It's called kenosis, where you get self-empty. But the purpose of this emptying is the filling and then the spilling. It's called the emptying, filling, and spilling principle. So the earth was void and it was empty, and then God filled it. So this is a principle in the kingdom. And it is painful when you go through the pruning process, and it just goes deeper and deeper, even into the motivation, until you come to this very place where you know that you're going to have to walk on water, and you have to fix your eyes on Jesus. If you blink, you're going to sink. But even in this journey here, it's just an encouragement for any one of you that are water walkers. And that's going to be another message in here, because I do want to release a water walking faith over our body. And the first thing we do, have to get out of the boat if you're going to walk on water. And don't listen to all the people on YouTube that are sitting in the boat and criticizing people that are sinking. I just wanted to encourage you, because there's a lot of people that are sitting there just looking and waiting for somebody to sink. But here is the blessings that he reminds me about today, because I have a history with God, and I've had some water walking moment before. From the finances, I've had so many stories at 11:59 and needed a large amount of money, $73,820 last time. And it was just 11:59 and there was no money, and I couldn't call anybody, I couldn't tell anybody. Everything I tried to do, God says, don't do it. And I'm like, God, why didn't you show up at the first hour? I love the first hour faith when I declare and it happens. And then the second hour and then the third hour. But now it's that fourth hour again. Why, God? And there's one simple word, trust. As long as there's something else you can trust in. So he's just ticking the clock until you suddenly have nothing else to trust in. And he is enough. And listen to this statement. To his children. Say that with me. God will never give anything less than himself. Nevertheless. It is nevertheless. To his sons and daughter, the Father will never give us anything less than himself. So it's nevertheless. To his sons and daughters. So you're putting into this place of being on a journey with Jesus, to be with Jesus, to become like Jesus, and learning how to live and love like Jesus. So we're stepping out of the boat. I've already taken that stay, already rented facility and started to send money I didn't have. And then you start that thing by faith and fix your eyes on Jesus. But just recently I started to sink again. And then it's beautiful to have a story when you take your eyes off Jesus, you start to look at the circumstances, you look at what you don't have, and you forget in a moment you do starts to sink. And at that very moment, the reminder comes back again that even when my faith level is little, his grace level is big. Jesus will just reach out his hand and give you another upgrade in grace. He reached out his hand and he lifted Peter up, and Peter is the only one who can say that I walked on water. And maybe my friend Mel Tari also has walked, if you've read the book, like a mighty wind. So anyway, let's get to John chapter 4, and we're going to just look at some things. And today I wanted to take our family to a well. Say well. We're going to go and visit ourselves. We're going to go to a well, and it's going to be an invitation from our family to come and drink today. How many is thirsty here? Most of the time when you're dehydrated, you don't know how dehydrated you are. I collapsed in... I was going to think Palm Spring, California. And I've been on a little trip around the world, and I was home, woke up early in the morning. I had like 3 hours of sleep and had to get up. So first thing I did was I take me 2 cups of coffee just to get ready for it. And I came to Atlanta airport, and when I arrived there, what I did is I went to the Sky Club and I had me a cup of coffee because I wanted to wake up. And then on the airplane, they came there, what kind of a drink would you like? I said, I would like some coffee. And then when I landed, I came there and they said, what would you like? I said, well, let me get 1 glass of water and some coffee. And then I spoke all day and I spoke the night and we prayed for a lot of people. And then eventually the next day again, I had some nice coffee. And then suddenly my body just collapsed in the hotel room. And they had to call the doctors and the nurses to come and check with me. And they said, you have one problem, and that is that you have been severely dehydrated. And I just believe that I didn't recognize how severely dehydrated. And some of us as believers, some of the things that we're drinking from, and we do not know that some of it is actually very polluted. And you do not recognize, it's too late when you start to feel you're thirsty. So you do not wait till you're thirsty to start to drink. So the doctor told me, no, you're going to drink and drink and drink water. And at least for every cup of coffee, take 2 bottles of water. Because it is too late when you start to feel you're thirsty. And I just feel today I'm going to invite our body and our family now to drink so that rivers can start to flow again. Because the one that is thirsty, you come and drink, and then from your innermost being there's going to be a river. So the story here in John chapter 4. I wanted to read 1 verse to begin with. Verse 4, but he needed to go through Samaria. Say that with me, but he needed to go. One more time. One more time. Normally I would just read through this, but as I said, when I went to this process of reading the gospel with a heart, not just studying it, but let it study me, I stopped and said, why did you, Jesus, need? It's the word need. It didn't say he wanted, not that he was driven. No, he needed to go to Samaria. The easy answer is because the Father is going to Samaria. And all he did is what he see the Father do. But the other thing that has to do with it, because if you understand the culture context, Jesus you don't go to Samaria. You're going around Samaria. Don't you remember those Samaritans when John wanted fire from heaven to destroy those Samaritans that didn't vote for you, Jesus? I mean, those Samaritans, this is us against them. They're on the other side of that political scale. It would be like if you with a MAGA hat would go to the Democratic Convention. That's the closest you can, or opposite. So I'm not going political, but I want you to see it is this us against them. A Jew will never be with a Samaritan. But Jesus needed to go to Samaria, not going around Samaria. He goes right straight into Samaria. And then he goes to a well. Say well. My question is again in the next moment when he went to a well, I asked the question, why would you, Jesus, go to a well? Why didn't you choose a prayer mountain or a synagogue or find something else that would be more appropriate? Because you're a Jewish, and second of all, when he's going to go there, he's going to meet a woman. A man cannot meet with a woman. This is in the Middle East. This is in the Taliban culture. And we have to understand and read the scriptures from Middle Eastern perspective. In the Taliban culture, Jesus chose us to go to a well. Say well. I asked the question, why was that a well? Let me just remind you, your body, every one of you, just touch your body. This body of yours has between 75 or 80% water. And what you're made of, you are longing for. If you're a billionaire in Atlanta, you need water. If you're a homeless person, you need water. If you're a Jew, you need water. If you're Muslim, you need water. If you're Buddhist, you need water. It doesn't matter who you are. Children needs water. Everybody needs water. What they did is they built a well, and all the community was built around a well. And I felt prophetically speaking that this church is supposed to be a well. And I felt that in this season when I was in the prayer and I was praying. But the only reason I changed my message to this message, because I just felt last night I heard the word well. That's the only thing I had. And then I felt that this is the direction. But you've been redigging wells of revival. There's been a redigging of wells, and it's been going deep and deep and deep. And now there's about to becoming an overflow of water. And it is this pure, pure water that is going to touch people, because there's a lot of thirsty people out there. A lot of people are dehydrated. A lot of people have been drinking from the polluted water the world has to offer, but they're just getting more and more thirsty. And they're looking for something that is pure. They're looking for something that's real, something that is authentic. So Jesus chooses a well. Say well. Because it is a unifying place. The place, if you're the police officer, you need water. If you are the criminal, you need water. If you're the firefighter, you need water. But also if you're the arson, you need water. It doesn't matter who you are, you need water. And this is going to also be a place that people that are out there that are thirsty, when they don't know what to do, they know where to go to find water. So say with me, say well. The second thing we're going to talk a little bit about today is water. Say water. I've already mentioned, look at the next slide here. So the picture here of water for all of us, as I'm saying that Jesus, he shows up in Samaria and he goes to a well. And he sits at the well. And then there is this woman, she's coming with a jar. It's in the middle of the day. It is hot, it is warm. And she's coming in a day, and we know the story. She doesn't want to be around people, or actually to say it another way, people don't want to be around her. Because she has some issues. Say issues. So if somebody have any issues, congratulations, you're qualified. Because religion, if you touch the lepers, you are unclean. But for us in the kingdom, if we touch the lepers, they become clean. It's a whole different perspective for the sons and daughters that sees what Jesus sees. He doesn't treat people based upon their history, but their destiny. So when he saw this drug addict, Leif Hetland, that was broken teenager, he saw an ambassador of love to the Muslim world. When he saw the terrorist Saul, he saw the apostle Paul write, love is patient, love is kind. So when you're looking out and you're looking at people, the one you meet on a daily life, when you start to get the eyes of Jesus, you do not just see them the way they are, but you see them how they're going to be. And you don't treat them based upon their history, but their destiny. Because when we want to be like Jesus, to become like Jesus and live and love like Jesus, one of the things we're going to see Jesus, the way he's seeing this woman, it is called the truth. I know the truth will set her free. And the truth is not what you do. It is not your behavior. That's shame speaking. And shame is a liar. Jesus took your shame so that you are glorified. So the conversation is Jesus comes there, he chooses a well, he has not brought his own jar, and he is there on an assignment from the Father. The Father wants his family back, and he sees something about this woman. Here she is coming, seeing this Jewish rabbi sitting there, and she is there about to get some water, and then Jesus says, just this statement changed me. Will you give me something to drink? Here's God himself that says to this woman, I thirst. There's only one other time Jesus thirsts. The other one is on the cross when he says, I thirst. 2 times God thirsts. And this is one time God thirsts. And it is that this woman has something that he needs. Why is this important? Because when I'm looking at somebody, if that's the Muslim imam, if that is that Shia Muslim leader that I'm going to meet with, whoever I meet with on a daily basis, when I look at those people, I'm not coming as a salesperson, I have a product that's going to solve your issue. I'm actually looking at every single person. The homeless have something I need. The billionaire have something I can learn from. The Muslim imam have something. Because honor is what love looks like. And we honor in our words, in our thoughts, and our deeds. If Jesus himself starts the conversation with this woman, that you have something that I need. There's something I honor about you that I need from you. And I want it to be like Jesus. There's something about every single person, even the difficult people with issues. There's lessons they're going to teach me. And I don't have a hook. It is love without an agenda. I'm not doing this so that's going to give me a favor, this is going to open up a door. I do that because I become love. Are you guys okay? So say well. Say water. So Jesus said, would you give me something to drink? And she's like, who is this guy? First of all, it doesn't make sense. I'm a woman, a lot of issues. Nobody wants to have anything to do with me. He is a Jew. I'm a Gentile. He's a rabbi. I'm a broken woman. And you could just go on with all of the different things that is going on in this equation. And then Jesus is looking at her. Hey, would you give me something to drink? It's like, why didn't you bring your own jar? Are you flirting with me or what is the issue? I mean, she had to, you are, don't you know, Jews and Leif, you shouldn't be with those Muslims in the mosque. Leif, why are you a professor? Did you know I'm a professor at Sharia law? One of your church members, he's a professor at Sharia law. Do you know that I'm a professor at Islamic University for women and all you see is this, they totally cover up. I'm a Christian. A Christian cannot speak to women. Second of all, I'm a male. I cannot speak. Where did you learn that from? Jesus. And I had the lessons that I learned from Jesus. I was in a meeting in Karachi. This was 2 trips ago. And I was sitting there and I got to meet with the top Shia leader. That's the Iranian group. And there's 40 million Shia Muslims in Pakistan. And he's the general secretary. And we went officially to his meeting. And I brought my book with me, Seeing Through Heaven's Eyes, as a gift to him. Because there he can see with heaven's eyes. And so we were sitting there and talking. And he said, I only have time for about 20 minutes. And I had a granny mom with me. And we were sitting there and we're drinking some chai together and get to know each other. And he said, I have to leave in a few moments because I'm going to teach. I said, what are you going to teach? And I'm going to teach about Sharia. I said, wow, I love that, Sharia. And he said, are you interested in Sharia? Oh, yes, I've studied Sharia. So he said, okay, would you consider to teach? I said, I would love to teach. Okay, come with me. And we went there. Oh. And when we showed up there, all these women were just totally burqa there, and we were sitting there. And he said, let me talk about Sharia. What did I do? Let me talk about Sharia. What is Sharia? It's the love of law. You break this, we chop off your arm. You break the law. Wow, it is amazing. It works. I'm not going to steal again. I lost my arm. And because what am I doing? Is I honor the love of law, meaning you drive traffic, you break the speed limit, and you get a fine. I mean, you break the law, and here's the punishment, that's Sharia. But my message is, which one is greatest? Is the love of law or the love of love? Because you don't change the hearts of somebody, even with the law. So Sharia cannot change the hearts of people. So when nobody is looking, they still have those issues. And one is fear-based, the other one is love-based. And then I started to talk, it's actually just covertly revival. I started to talk about perfect love cast out fear. But instead of saying the scripture verse, because all of us as believers, as ambassadors of love that are representing the King, it is not just that we know the language of heaven, which is the language of love. And the language of love is the language the blind eyes can see and the deaf ears can hear. But also it is our responsibility as kingdom citizens representing the King well to know how the King thinks, but also to understand the culture context where you're in. So if I'm with a cessationist, or if I'm with a Muslim, or if I'm with a Sikh, if I'm with a Hindu, if I'm with a homeless, if I'm whoever that person is to translate it in such a way that their eyes will be able to see it and their ears will be able to hear it. That's called Wisdom 101. So for me, it was just coming in, and one of my favorite stories there. And I said, when I was a little boy in Norway, I was bitten by a dog. And I showed him a little scar, and everybody was looking at me strange. And I looked, I saw the top Shia leader and the top Sunni leader. And this is impossible. You don't bring the Sunni and the Shia together. But Jesus bring the Samaritan, the Samaritans and the Jews. So if good enough for Jesus is good enough for me. Because to be a disciple or a follower of Jesus, if I'm an apprentice, if I'm a disciple of Jesus, I am with my master, I'm learning the master's way, I'm becoming like my master, and then I start to live and love like my master, and the people will call me Christian because I am like Christ. Like my master in every situation. That's the whole journey of not just spiritual formation, but also spiritual transformation. Anyway, so back to that. So I tell them the story about the dog story. What am I doing now? First, I'm just using the scripture verse. Perfect love casts out fear. I'm just showing them that love is greater than fear. I'm not dishonoring there. I just showed them there is something greater. Do you see what I did? This is what Jesus is about to do in this story. He's interested in water, having a conversation. He's building a bridge over. He honors something about her. But then he's coming in afterward. Oh, if you knew who I was. By the way, I honor you and I'm interested in Sharia, but I also have something. And let me talk about that living water. Because if you drink from that, this water, if you drink from that, you will never be thirsty again. I don't know if you're getting it. I don't know if it is getting you. But this kind of a thinking can lead to dancing. Be careful. And you can become a joyful Christian. And maybe the joy of the Lord will be your strength. So be careful. I just give you some warnings. So the story is, so I was telling them the story. And I said, one day we lived in Alabama, Florence, Alabama. And I'm telling all these Muslim students, you see them. I wish I took the picture because I have it on my phone. So you can see all these women with just a burqa and these imams and shias behind me. And I talk about this dog story. I'm supposed to be a professor. And so the dog story, I was bitten by a dog when I was little and I had fear. But now a big pit bull came into my yard and it was attacking a little a little kitty cat. So I said to them, do we have any cat lovers? And nobody waved to me. If you're a cat lover here, I ask your forgiveness. Okay, they have some cat lovers. Please forgive me. I'm not saying I don't love cats. I'm just about to tell a story. So I said, how many here think that I will use my life and sacrifice my life for that cat? And everybody looks at me strange because at least in the Muslim world, nobody would do that. And I said, why? Why is that? Because fear. Because the fear I have for that dog is greater than the love I have for the cat. But in a moment, the dog turned around and my son is coming out. And the dog is about to attack my son. I absolutely no fear. Why? Because of love. The love I have for my son is greater than the fear I have for the dog. But what if this is not you? What if it is him? One is fear and one is love. Well, what if I sing? What if you walk? And we can just go on and on. The what if becomes louder and louder. But the question is, where do you put your what if? If this is you, Peter said. So the story here is very beautiful and very simple, because now they start to have a conversation about water. And Jesus, oh, if you knew who I was, you would have asked me for some water. And this conversation, I do not have the chance of going into all of that. And finally, as they continue this conversation, Jesus says, hey, she said, why don't you give me that water? Like, stop talking, prove it. And then Jesus said, hey, why don't you bring your husband? And I feel this is another kingdom principle for us as a family. She says, I have no husband. And Jesus said, what you said is true. This is a very big key. Say true. Let's be authentic. Let's be honest. How are you doing? Fine. No. How are you doing? So if you're struggling, say, I'm struggling. I know we're living in a charismatic culture. We're living in a spirit-filled culture. But what Jesus loved so much about this woman, she was honest. And it is being honest with God. Be honest with yourself. I'm honest with myself. My emotional tank is a little low right now. I have given a lot. I burned a lot of fuel. And right now, I'm aching to be in the secret place, to be with him, to be alone. Just have this need in my season to just be with a lover, because I missed my family. I missed my grandson. I missed my wife. I've been there and I've had this ache. And then one night I was in my room. I was like, I wish I could be home right now. It's been a long 18-hour day and hadn't slept much. And then I could hear the father say, well, I missed you too, son. And then I was thinking about the scripture verse. Well, I've done miracles in your name. We prophesied in your... I don't know you. Oh, there was 10 virgins and 5 of them, they didn't have oil, and 5 of them have oil because they cultivated oil of intimacy with their lover. So if we're going to burn brightly without burning out, we have to learn how to go into a secret place. And part of the weakness with our culture and what is being exposed, I'm going to be just a father to speak it out the way it is. As maybe many of you maybe knew, at Bethel Reading, I was the speaker with Sean Bowles at the main prophetic conference when a lot of these things was going on, where the whistleblower is. And so I'm saying in the middle of all of this, but I've often looked back and I've thought about it, and I realized that when we are creating a culture where eventually that the value system for the orphans is to come and get. And we are coming there, we want oil, and we want to come, we want a word, and we want to direct the words, and we create conferences, and there's this expectation. This is not to cover up for anybody, but it's just be honest. I've evaluated this, and I've seen that so many times. What if you only do what the Father is doing, and you only say what the Father is saying, and you have 3,000 people plus online, people that are coming and paying money to get the directive word because they themselves don't know how to hear the voice of the Father. Let me say that the prophetic should come and circumcise our ears so we can hear the Father's voice. But when we're just looking at somebody and God is not speaking, then people start to make up themselves. Because they're going to fill the expectation of people, because in an orphan world, when they're orphan prophets, they still have love deficiency. And I've been heartbroken in these years. I've been serving on 6 different boards I spent months and months dealing with case after case of different people that are messing up their lives in this season. And so many of them is just their emotional tank is low. And then the enemy is pushing the button of fear. It's just like what happened to Peter, and then the enemy builds a fire for you to do something to warm yourself up when your emotional tank is low. And the very thing you said you will never do, you did. And Peter denied Jesus. It's the last thing he would ever do. They'd given up everything to follow Jesus, the lordship of Jesus. But he denied him. Why? Fatigue, then fear, then failure, then forsaken. The good news was Jesus restored him. And there's restoration, and there's hope. I didn't plan to chase that rabbit, but I feel there's something here about the word that when Jesus is coming in, let's be honest with one another. Can we be honest, be real, be authentic? Can we coming in here, if you do struggle, if you have an issue, that you're not afraid that you have issue. Actually, Jesus came for your issues. And you feel disqualified, that is your qualification for humility so that you can get grace. Because without him, we can do nothing. But in him, we can do all things. If Graceland was good enough for Elvis, it should be good enough for you. But there's only one entrance point, that's called humility, because he resists the proud and he gives grace to the humble. Anyway, so the story is, so Jesus says, what you said is true. Now Jesus is coming with a word of knowledge. Jesus had known this from the beginning. He knew when the Father was sending him to Samaria that the woman he's going to meet with, she have some issues. The way we are seeing this from our culture context, this woman must have been a little loose. At least that's the way I read it. Because I mean, there's one thing when you've had one divorce, 2, 3, 4. But when this woman is showing up and she had 5 divorces, and now she's living with somebody that is not her husband. So Jesus is revealing and she is in shock. Jesus is revealing, for the whole purpose of the word, the whole purpose of the truth is to reveal the truth to you so that you need grace. But truth without grace is mean. Grace without truth is meaningless. Grace plus truth is medicine. Because what the truth reveals, grace always provides. The whole purpose of the truth is just to give you the diagnosis. But now when you know the diagnosis is to humble yourself so that you can receive grace. That's the medicine, that's the cure that will set you free. But to give you the cure if you don't know that you have an issue. Anyway, so what Jesus is doing, he coming with the truth now and he reveals because she was honest. And when you're honest, he says, you have had 5 husbands. But let me just help you with this story. And I am going to land it in a couple of minutes. I think have about 8 minutes left. Are you guys okay? Just say well. Say water. Say word. Then Jesus says, you have had 5 husbands, you're living one. And she's like, how did you know? Are you a prophet? And this whole thing is going on. And then this is the beautiful part I think about Jesus, because listen, a woman could not divorce herself from a husband. In the Middle East, a woman could not. In Pakistan, these countries, that's not the reality. Here's a woman who believed in covenant, believed in love, was violated by the husband. The next one comes in. And again, there's the promises and having she hope and love. And she's been violated by love so many times until she meets God himself. And after 5, now she's living one. It doesn't say she's sleeping with one. It means that somebody just providing a covering over her head because nobody wants her any longer. Until we get the lenses of love and somebody comes in with a brokenness, you need to know the story that is behind the story. If you're going to treat them based upon their destiny and not their history. Are we okay? I'm just a little passionate about this. Ba-da-da-da. Ba-da-da-da-da. Ba-da-da-da-da. So we rest, receive, become, release. We rest, receive, become, release. So even at this moment, the word comes in, and as he starts to reveal himself, this is the first time that Jesus reveals himself as a Messiah. He revealed himself as a Messiah before his time, but he chose us to do with a woman who had 5 husbands. And he reveals, are you the Messiah? And Jesus says, yes, I am. I am the Messiah. This is the first time in Scripture he revealed himself as the Messiah. And he did it as this word. And this woman is, so now you go from, look at the next one. Say worship. One next slide. The next thing that is happening now is worship. Because this is what Jesus was thirsting for. John chapter 4 verse 23. I'm just jumping quickly here. But it says something. The time is coming. And the time is now. That the Father is looking for worshipers that will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. What was Jesus thirsty for? For this orphan woman to come home so she could get her identity restored, so she could become who she was and get to know the Father, so she could become a worshiper in the Father in spirit and in truth. That's what Jesus was thirsty for when he says, would you give me something to drink? And this is what we are going to be as a family, worshipers that knows Papa God. We know the Father, the same Father that Jesus knew. That's why we touch people when the Father is touching people. And I experience the freedom, because whom the Son set free is free indeed. And where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty and there is freedom. This woman is being set free. And then she said, hey, let me tell you about this man. Let me tell you about this man. It was into witness. I met this guy and I came in there. And she left her jar. So here's my question today. What are some of the jars that you have had in this season where you're going to try to meet some of your needs and meeting some of your needs, and perhaps it's been polluted? This water, you just temporarily meet some of your needs, financially need, health needs, whatever needs you have. What are they? Because today you're going to leave those jars behind. She left her jar, whatever she had that was just meeting her temporary needs for today, but tomorrow she needed another one, and the next day and the next day, until she connected to Jesus and he tapped her into a source that makes you thirst no more. And there's so many things we're drinking from, but he's inviting us to drink from something different. And everything else that is temporary is going to just last temporary. But what he's offering is eternal. And we're going to come and drink. Can I get the Sheelys to come up, Chris and Summer? And I just love the Sheelys and the worship team. We maybe end up 10 minutes over today. And I think I have the liberty. Do I have the liberty, pastors? Not in my speaking, but just I feel in the worship and in the... But here's the witness and here's the testimony. Next slide. The story here, and it is so beautiful. We were in Cuba, and some of you have heard this story because it was during the COVID. We went in to smuggle some toothbrushes and toothpaste during COVID because they didn't have anything. So filled up a couple of suitcases because they hadn't had toothpaste for over 1 year. Not even one ibuprofen. And so we brought all these things in there. And I preached during the COVID. And then Aki, the pastor's wife, she came to me and said, "Hey, Papa Leif, when I get my hair done, I really don't like it." And I knew I'm in trouble when a woman asks about her hair. I have a beautiful wife, and I have 3 daughters, and I have 2 granddaughters. And so she said, but some of the sisters, meaning some of the believers, they go to this other lady, and when they come back, the hair is so pretty. So what should I do? And I'm first thinking, well, if you have one sister in your church that cuts your hair, maybe that's not her gift. Maybe she's operating outside her ear of anointing. But maybe the other lady is. But then she gave me the other story behind the story. She said, well, the problem with the other lady, she's a witch. And she's the head of witchcraft. And everybody knows. So when you're going in there, there's all these demonic symbols. They are everywhere. So what should I do? And I said, well, is the light in you greater than the darkness in the witch? She looked at me strange. And I say, is the love that you have for the witch greater than her hatred towards you? Because you only have authority over what you love. And she looked at me. So Aki took the risk. It's called faith. She went to the witch and she prayed. And the witch was touching her hair. She was afraid she was getting critters. She went the second time a little bit more relaxed. And third time, fourth, fifth, sixth time. 6 times in the next year. I showed up in Cuba 1 year later. And when I showed up there, I was like... I just shared a gospel message. We had some people healed and 9 people to give their life to Jesus in that service. It was beautiful, yeah. And then I realized and all of them ended up on the floor. I prayed for them for baptism of love. And I found out later on, one of the ladies there had a major encounter. She got saved, healed, and delivered. That's a full sozo. Anyway, so the story is, then a year afterwards, I came to Cuba, and we had this new worship leader. She was extravagant. Her face was glowing like the glory, and she was just worshiping and leading. And I'm like, I went to our leader, who is this new worship leader? I've never seen a worship leader like that in Cuba. And she said, that's the witch. I said, which witch? That's how I found out about the story. I didn't know that I prayed for her. I didn't know that I even had said it. I don't remember the conversation. And by the way, she leads 16 of our home churches today. Her name is not Witch. Her name is Lee, Pastor Lee right now. We ordained her right afterwards because I knew, just like this woman, you're not going to be able to stop her. Let me tell you about this man. Let me tell you about what he's done. This woman, she got ordained to preach the gospel, the good news, and she became contagious and she spread that around. It was one woman's encounter that later on became a regional revival. So in Acts chapter 8, when Philip comes to Samaria, there was an open heaven. Where did that come from? The seed of one woman. Now was a tree full of fruit. And it created an open heaven. The testimony of this woman about this Jesus had already changed the environment of a region. And that's what we're seeing in Cuba today, where a witch became a worshiper. 2 pictures here. There's a picture in the end of a desert here. Let's stand to our feet. I just felt today, the ones that is thirsty. Anybody here hungry for more? Just wave to me. Anybody thirsty? And I know some of you are going to go and pick up the children and the children's church, but this is called the Atacama Desert. The Atacama Desert is in Chile, and it is the driest place in the world. When this picture was taken, it had been 7 years and there's not been one drop of rain. So Atacama is the driest place. But what you don't see in this picture, because I feel there's some of you, and I'm a little bit there now, when I said, I'm hungry in this season. I'm thirsty in this season. I'm asking him for the gift of thirst. A gift, a grace gift of hunger. I've just been asking him, please give me this gift. That I always will be hungry for more. That I never settle for yesterday's bread. And I cannot do anything about tomorrow's bread. But I need fresh bread of his presence today. I'm just hungry. But I felt, even today, this morning, I saw some people financially, it's been a desert. You know Dave and Alicia's story. Over 20 years, they waited to be pregnant. They had a desert. But today, they have a beautiful little girl named Emma that is running all over. I don't know what your desert is. I don't know what your Saturday season is. You've been waiting for the healing, waiting for the miracle. But what you don't see underneath here, this thing is not dead. What you don't see underneath, there's all those seeds underneath the ground that is just waiting for water. I want you to see the next picture. The picture here, this is the next picture. Could I get the next slide, please? I know we want to stay in the desert for a little while. There was one, there it is. This is called a super bloom harvest. And the next moment, everything changed. A little bit rain comes in. And here, in one moment, we heard about some of the financial breakthrough that had been a wilderness in a season. But when the rain comes, when the water comes, when you start to drink and river starts to flow, suddenly those areas where there has been barrenness is now becoming a blessing. That Friday now is turning into a Sunday moment and a Sunday shout. After a long, long Saturday season. And I just felt today that Jesus is here. And as if anyone is thirsty, some of you are going to leave your jars behind. Some of you are tired of being tired. Some of you have had battle fatigue. And I feel the invitation, come to me, all of you who are weary and heavy laden. I will give you rest. My burden is easy and my yoke is light. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. I am low and meek and humble in heart, and I give you rest for your soul. There's a gift of thirst and there's a gift of hunger here. And I know Tariq is going to come up here. I felt especially shoulder on the right side is going to be healed. There's a rotator cuff. There's the L4, L5 that's going down your left leg is going to be healed. Somebody there with a tailbone that needs to be healed. It's been painful even when you've been sitting. But there's a river flowing here. Jesus says, hey, would you give me something? There's something honor about you, something that you carry. But he has also something for you. Just be honest with him. I'm tired. I'm weary. I need healing. I need a breakthrough. My marriage, my family. So we're going to worship him right now. And then you just come here and there's going to be grace, grace, grace available. It just takes humility for people to receive grace. So Holy, Holy Spirit, the Spirit that says come. Holy, more. Just come and drink.
And I lift my voice.
Just come and linger here. Just rest.
To worship you. Oh, my soul.
Baba.
Rejoice.
Holy, holy, holy.
Take joy. In what you hear, and let it be a sweet, sweet sound.
All those seeds.
In your and I love you,
Baba.
to worship you, oh my soul, rejoice, take joy